What's up, everybody? Clifford Starks here, and I'm with my good friend Jessica Corvo. Yeah, we wanted to talk about Wim Hof and our experiences with Wim Hof. And as you know, I kind of let conversations go where they're going to go. Life is a very holistic game, going into the mental, the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, and everything else in between. We have ups, downs, left, rights, everything going on in life, and ultimately what I've learned in my journey is the experiences and the stories that we have behind those experiences are absolutely the game changer. And if we have a story that can inspire you to go out and live your greatest dream, or even just give you a pick me up or inspire others, then we're doing the right work. So Jessica, welcome. I appreciate you taking the time to connect, and I really look forward to hearing your thoughts on the Wim Hof process that you went through.
Yeah, actually, disclaimer, Wim Hof breathing techniques is one of many that I've dipped into, but it's not the one that I use.
Okay.
So for me, just a little bit of background on me for all the listeners and anybody on. I am a seasoned athlete, so I've been doing sports for over 20 years. At the high school level, it's all the way through state as a sprinter. Through university, it's all the way through nationals in the 400, and then as an adult, it's doing Ironman. So I shifted from doing high intensity sprinting, different muscle groups, to doing endurance. And when I finished my first Ironman, I was able to finish in 12 hours and 18 minutes, and I kept my heart rate between 132 and 142. Now, that is based and grounded in self mastery, not specific with any one discipline, but that's a culmination of 20 years of athletics going into it. And then also, I am a survivor of attempted murder, domestic violence, family violence, however you want to frame it. And being able to understand what's going on and have ultimate control over your body is the ultimate flex as far as I'm concerned, and the only reason why I'm still here.
I love it.
It was literal life or death, learning curves for me.
Yeah, yeah. And you learn so much going through a process like that, and what I loved is how you could keep your heartbeat to that and how long did you do it for again? Like
For the first Ironman was 12 hours and 18 minutes.
12 hours and 18 minutes. So that's no joke, even a little bit.
Yeah.
And going through my journey as an athlete and a fighter and a football player, a wrestler, I really commend and respect that because I know what it takes, both internally and externally, to go through a process like that. Because it is that internal game, but it's also the external game too. And basically getting alignment in both worlds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of people they underestimate the power of influences. Athletes at the high level know that it's everything. It's not just what you're doing in the gym, the sets, the reps, or anything like that. It's what you're consuming, what foods you're eating, what drinks you're drinking, your community, who you confide in, the quality of your sleep. Everything is an input. And I think a lot of people that aren't necessarily athletes aren't tested to that level.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for people who travel, it's even deeper. I've lived in 5 different countries,
Yeah.
including my home country. And so from that, you really, really get to understand. You're not talking about travel, you're talking living. So it's at least 6 months for the shortest time and 4 years for the next one of
Mm-hmm.
all the nutrition and the surroundings and the weather. I mean, everything, all the different elements. And
Yeah.
so I know the difference on how my body feels based on swimming in natural lakes versus swimming in oceans versus rivers or pools, the chemicals on how they're affecting me, the quality of the chicken, what type of hormones are pumped into some of our meats or any of our foods in general, and the
Mm-hmm.
quality of our fruits and vegetables.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm huge on that. I say, what's up? Hey, Mama Misty. And I see Facebook user. I apologize. That's all it's showing me right now. But welcome. Appreciate you being on and connecting with us. But so knowing your body in such a level and was interesting. I didn't realize. I actually learned this. Our bodies hold on to traumas and they can let go of traumas too. Like
Mhm.
our bodies are literally holding these energies,
Mhm.
and when we can understand the energy, then we can release that energy. And of course, there's process and systems that work better for some than others, and other ones work better the other way around. And so
Mhm.
I actually want to ask you, as we are speaking on that, so what breathing techniques do you like? And when you did the Wim Hof, what made you decide to do the ones that you do now versus doing the Wim Hof technique?
Words are important. Words are
Hmm.
spells. That's why we call them spelling, right?
Hmm.
So are we learning to release or are we learning not to block?
Okay. So,
So if you put it in that framing,
hmm.
it's not so much a matter of how do we actively move something through, but it's how do we release a blockage.
Hmm.
So from that, a lot of people will, just from breathing in general, right? Wim Hof is amazing. I love him. He's very scientific. You can go in and do a reset. Some of his breathing techniques, he's got an entire app, and some of his breathing techniques actually goes into the cellular level and talking about, you know, revamping the entire system. And the claims are even that you can reverse illness. I'm
Hmm.
not a doctor. I can only go off of my experience, and I'm
Yeah.
not going to claim to jump in any of that. You want those details? You got to go find Wim Hof himself.
Yes.
I don't claim
I'm
any
on
of
the same boat, not a doctor.
that.
Go check out the details of the research.
Absolutely, absolutely. I That said, I'm not a science person, so I'm an experiential person. I believe that the best way to learn anything is to jump in, sometimes head first.
Yeah.
And a lot of people can give you the roadmaps or the strategies, but each person is completely individual. So
Hmm.
looping back to what, I was first starting, the difference between releasing versus unblocking, it's addressing something. It is going back, and there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score that's specifically on how trauma is kept within the body. If you
Hmm.
look at movement, what is it? Emotions follow movement. I forget what the saying is. So if you're constantly moving, that is healthy because you're removing that blockage. The body is not meant to be sedentary. And we've
Yeah.
seen this with the last 2 years with World 2.0. How many people shifted from moving and grooving to a little bit more of a sedentary lifestyle? And now we've
Hmm.
seen even more unhealth or dis-ease or, different mental, physical,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
overall health things that are happening. And I think from that perspective, if you're breathing, any athlete will tell you the importance of breathing in the nose and out the mouth.
Hmm.
However, when you go for a punch, you're MMA, right?
Hmm.
So when you go for a punch, are you worrying about that inhale?
No.
Heck no, no. You're inhaling to clear that mind. You're exhaling for that power. So and then
Yeah.
you go, right?
Hmm. Yep.
Sprinters, same. Birds
Yeah.
of a feather.
I love it.
You don't, I mean, you're not worrying about just before that gun goes off and you're clearing that mind and you're like, and then as soon as that gun goes off, you're like, boom. And then you get
Yeah.
out of those blocks and you push off those blocks.
Hmm.
That to me is the biggest difference for breath work or anything that anybody wants to dive into. They focus on the first part, but then they get lazy because the mind is mushy and it's mushy on so many capacities. It could be, I'm a big advocate on how we have too much freaking sugar in all of our diets, our nutrition plans. They put sugar in everything.
I'm on
Sugar
the same
makes
boat with you on
mind
that one.
mushy.
Yes.
So
Yes.
if you think about it from that perspective, oversimplified, I think any kind of breath work, just from a bare basics and a principle perspective, really focus on the exhale. The inhale is to kind of find that peace. The exhale is that power. And that is acknowledging the blockages that we have. That's
Hmm.
pushing everything through and allowing it to go into its normal state
Yeah. Yeah.
because the body is not meant to be still.
Yeah. No, and I love that, and the fact that the body is not meant to be still. It's meant to move. It's meant to
Mhm.
flow. I went through, even going from my fighter's journey to my entrepreneurial journey.
Mhm.
I didn't realize I was still being the same person. Like, I'm all
Mhm.
about dreaming big. I've
Mhm.
always been about dreaming big, and no one's gonna keep me from dreaming big and taking the action, taking the experimental action.
Yeah.
And that's what gets people in trouble. Like, all right, if I think about it long enough, like, no, don't think, just go. Like, take the action and figure it out, and make mistakes, learn lessons, and adjust.
Mhm.
Constantly adjust. And so, even like, I'll give an example. I can read documentation of Wim Hof and what people have gone through, but I really love hearing other people's experiences. Love
Mhm.
hearing other people's stories. Love hearing other people's journeys and what conclusions they came to, because it's
Mhm.
fun to me. I have a lot
Mhm.
of fun doing that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess from an experiential perspective, if you do any of the breathing techniques, the average person's doing shallow breathing.
Hmm.
So once you start doing actual breathing techniques, then you might get lightheaded. You might feel like buzz throughout your entire body. You will feel somewhat of an instant lightness, a little bit of confusion, and then a lightness. You'll also automatically feel your posture is kind of straightening up just a little bit, and you can almost understand on how everything is connected. I'm more of an advocate of vipassana. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's a meditation practice, and it's
Mm-mm.
observe the body to master the mind.
Okay.
There is no specific breathing techniques. I mean, you know just as well as I do, there's over 600 muscles in the body.
Yeah.
That said, there's a lot of muscles that go without our consciousness,
A bunch of them.
right? I mean, our heart works without us thinking about it. We breathe without thinking about it. All
Yeah.
of our organs, they do what they're supposed to be doing, you know,
Yeah.
as long as we don't interrupt it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or make it hard for them to do their job. And when you're doing Vipassana, the main practice, it's a 10-day course. And each day you go a little bit deeper into your practice in terms
Mhm.
of observing the body. That way you can master the mind. And that is the number one thing, because I have my own coaching practice. And that is the number one thing that I promote to anybody who wants to work with me.
Yeah. Observe the body to master the mind. I absolutely love that.
Mhm.
And what was interesting, so one of the things that I kind of learned on my journey, I knew mindset was always important,
Mhm.
and I actually went into a stage where I was like, it's all about the mindset. You got to focus on
Mhm.
your mindset and nothing else. And that was my learning experience. Like, I was actually getting away from the thing that made me who I was.
Mhm.
I went through my entrepreneurial journey,
Mhm.
and I stopped exercising because
Mhm.
I was focusing on learning, like, the wording, the audience, how to connect with the audience, how to speak to the audience. And then I was getting away from the one thing that gave me my unlimited energy was getting a light workout, getting moving, getting sweating, getting going. And we kind of become the thing that we focus on. And we're one thing that I've learned is figuring out alignment is about stepping back. And we get used to, like, I got to put this fire out, and if I put this fire out, this will happen. If I put this fire out, and when you just step back and be and observe, then you can kind of see, like, okay, well, what's going on here? What am I
Mhm.
doing? and
Mhm.
and and what should I be doing, and why am I doing what I'm doing?
Mhm.
And all of a sudden that alignment comes back in as you go through your process. So that's what I've kind of learned on my
Yeah.
journey.
I think a lot of people they oversimplify the concept of alignment. I think
Hmm.
for the intellectuals, and being a survivor of trauma and doing a buttload of my own work,
Hmm.
I would never claim to be an expert, but I always share my experiences. And
Yeah.
so from that, you can oversimplify that if you're intellectualizing something, you're in a state of trauma. You're in a
Hmm.
state, it's a survival, it's a coping mechanism. It's
Hmm.
not an intention. So if you know, if you have that consciousness that you're doing something, you're actively doing something, that is what helps you shift from here into here.
Yeah.
And so just like when you're training, so many intellectuals out there, so many philosophers out there. What is
Hmm.
it? 10,000 hours in order to master a skill. Bruce
Yeah.
Lee once said that I fear not the man who can punch 1,000 times, but the man who has
Do the
mastered
same
one
kick
punch
or
a
the
thousand
same
times. I
punch
mean,
a thousand times.
I might
Yep.
be misquoting. I don't remember
Yeah.
who said that, but these are all the greats, right?
Yeah.
And for me, this is like the importance of understanding if you're operating from here or if you're operating from here.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, they think that they can get to flow by intellectualizing it, and you can't. You
Yeah,
can't.
that's very true.
You can't. So like with you eliminating, the physical component, maybe you didn't understand at that moment what that need was for you. At the same time, going deeper, asking yourself why 5 times is my hack for me
Mhm,
personally. Sometimes I use it for my clients, sometimes it's not relevant. But you ask
mhm.
yourself why. Why are you doing this? Like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And you keep going deeper and deeper and deeper into whatever that activity is.
Yeah,
So, are you actually doing the physical activity because it's something that you think you need, or is it something that your body requires, or is it something that you are doing to avoid a certain emotion or feeling, or is it
mhm.
something that is bringing you closer to something? I mean, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just having that acknowledgement and that consciousness.
Yeah, yeah. Being able to really be in the moment, and I always remind people um, to make sure not to judge the moment. Just be in the moment and express the moment, because within expressing, you can be open and honest
Mm-hmm.
and make huge shifts.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the transformation really lies, and to go deep into that five whys and
Mm-hmm.
figuring out like, holy crap, like wow.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of people, they don't ask the questions because they're kind of intimidated by the answers,
Hmm. Yeah,
right? And so
yeah.
once you've had any kind of experience where it could have ended but it didn't, a semicolon moment,
Hmm.
you're unstoppable.
Yeah. And by the way, my whole thing is I am unstoppable. And I saw
Mhm.
your powerful shirt, which I'm a big, huge fan of. It's all about powerful, right?
Mhm.
And my game is I am unstoppable. When I get into that state,
Mhm.
I feel amazing. And when others are in that state with me,
Mhm.
it's amazing. By the way, me and Jessica are part of the same book. And I don't know if we did we even get the title yet from Eric?
Peak performance badasses around the world. I don't
Peak
know.
performance badasses around the world. That's what I'm talking about. Well, the unstoppable hashtag unstoppable. And so,
People found us. People found us. We didn't
yes,
apply. So just so you
yes.
know, this is a legit humble brag.
And that's I was like, so I connected with some of the people, and you were one of those connections,
Yeah.
and I just had a lot of effing fun because I'm like, oh my god, there's people who think as crazy as I think in a like, let's go do it, let's go make it happen. Like, oh, it's
Yeah.
impossible.
Why
Like,
not? Why not?
watch this. Like, we
Yeah.
got 12 people who think the impossible is possible. That's all we need.
But that's one of the Iron Man mantras, right? So
Yeah.
impossible is just I'm possible with a pause. That's all it
Amen.
is. That's all it
Amen.
is. And I think, I love athletes. Such a big difference for me after spending 11 years in Asia and coming back to the US. On a daily basis, I have an existential like crisis. I'm like, I don't claim my country. I don't claim my people. I don't know where I am anymore. This is insane
Yeah.
because I lost touch of the athlete community where anything is possible or I am possible or
Mm.
grab the bull by its horns and let's just rock and roll.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
either going to be a really fun situation or a really fun lesson. There is no such
Yes.
thing as bad.
Amen. No, amen to that. And I look at, so I'm so fond of athletes too,
Hmm.
and deep down inside. So my journey really started it started way before I became a personal trainer, but after I graduated from college, I got into personal training, and I remind everybody they have an athlete in them.
Yeah.
It's in them. They just have to see that that person is in them. And I know this from my own experience because, like I said, I was that overweight kid.
Hmm.
And when I was ready to make a change, best believe there was some tension and friction of people telling me, like, well, you're an overweight kid. How are you going to, like, I'm going to go until I figure it out, until
Hmm.
I put it together.
Yeah.
And from there, I'm like, wait, there's an athlete in every single one of us.
Yeah.
And when we can ask the right questions and really hold on to that North Star that we're looking at, the well, I say there is no limit because I know there's the saying the sky's the limit, and I go there is no limit.
Mhm.
We're limitless in a limited experience,
Mhm.
We just get to learn and grow and
Yeah.
process and stretch.
Yeah. So one of my favorite people is Rocky.
Hmm.
So the entire, Sylvester Stallone, amazing,
Yeah.
amazing, amazing. His personal story, his movie, this like everything. And even my bike, my Iron Man bike, his name is Rocky. So as soon
Hmm.
as every time I mount my bike, I'm like, dun 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 dun. I'm like, let's rock and roll. Let's
I
go.
love it.
I could be over the top and I'm okay with that.
It's the way to be.
Right. And the thing that really hits me in the heart is on how somebody's drive to do something. A lot of people oversimplify that you're either driven by pain or by pleasure,
Hmm.
right? So pain would be the fear of failing, the failure, disappointment, failure of I don't know, failure to launch, whatever. Like
Hmm.
you don't want to disappoint your parents. You don't want to. You have to live up to all these different labels that society is giving you, and it comes from a place of grind, the grind mentality, right? So Rocky Balboa, fall down. It doesn't matter how hard life hits you, but it's how hard you can get hit and how many
Hmm.
times you can get back up, right?
Yeah.
But then once you make that shift and then you go from here into here, it takes a lot of work. We're oversimplified. But once you go from here and you go from here and all your decisions are made in pleasure, I think that is such a strong paradigm shift for a lot of people to understand that grind and, being able to say what is possible or, anything is possible or like those limits and stuff, it just kind of disappears
Hmm.
because you go from this place of same thing what we were talking about, with the breathing, the
Yeah.
inhale versus the exhale, right?
Hmm.
So it's just that slight different paradigm shift where if you're running away from something or if you're open to the possibility of going towards something.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if I articulated that correctly. It makes sense up here, but I don't know if it came out here.
No, I mean
Sometimes this is disconnected from this, and I accept
no,
that.
yeah, it's really just about the choice and the desire, and what are you going after, and to run from something versus running towards something. So I am kind of playing with that a little bit.
But one isn't, but you're not running towards something. You're flowing towards something. So
Yeah.
my midlife crisis
Hmm.
is a professional dog walker, a fitness instructor, a coach,
Hmm.
and wellness consultant.
Hmm. Yeah.
And then effective in 2 months, an author.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm also a 12-hour Ironman, a survivor of attempted murder times twice. That alone makes people want to take a nap.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
But these aren't things that I actively said this is what I want to do. This was just when I sat with myself and said what makes me what makes me feel alive, what makes me feel joy. There is nothing that compares. I dipped my toes into personal training for like a hot minute.
Hmm.
I'll get my own clients, but working for other companies, the level of clients that they were dealing with, they were inconsistent, they were argumentative, they didn't have any trust, whether it was they didn't have the trust in the company or they didn't have the trust in the trainers. It's impossible. That is energy draining for me. So why would I even pour into something when somebody doesn't want to be there?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the shift is you go to places where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated, right?
Hmm.
So a lot of different like moving components into that. But I think when people get jobs, when people get doing family obligations. Rather than
Hmm.
family obligations, a family opportunity.
Yeah.
Rather than a job, is this a job or is this a partnership? You and I had a little bit of a locking horns moment a couple weeks back because when you had asked me if I had a job, well, I didn't see it as a job. I see it as a solution because I know my weakness is marketing and client acquisition. I'm
Hmm.
willing to pay somebody 20% to do that for me so I can stay in my state of flow where all I'm doing is delivering my services.
Hmm. Yeah.
But in society context, is that actually a job? Well, it depends. If you're in the service industry, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
It depends on how you kind of lay that out. Does that
True.
does that help?
Yeah, it does, and it's interesting. Like one thing with me on my journey, because I know everyone's going through their own journey, their own process,
Yeah.
and it took me some time because I really, in a lot of ways, felt everyone was more the same than they are different. And now I have a lot of fun with that because we are what we choose to focus on,
Yeah.
like whatever we choose to focus on. And one thing you said, words have spells, and they really do. They have power. They hold power.
Thoughts become words, words become things.
Yeah, yeah. And when I went through my journey, so I went from fighter to entrepreneur, and this was really hard at first. Words didn't really mean a whole lot to me because my whole thing was I came from a place where I got a lot of bad words. I got called bad names. So I got to choose if I was going to hold on to it and accept it, or if I was just going to become bulletproof, essentially. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure you know David Goggins.
Mm-hmm.
He has a book, You Can't Hurt Me.
Mm-hmm.
And his whole thing is he can just go. I can look in his eyes and I can feel the like that heart-centered passion that he goes with. I can feel it through him. And so he got to a place to where he can choose what he's going to let in and what he's not going to let in. And at the same time, I'm sure he's aware of his surroundings and his environment at such an intense, deep level. And going through his process, I'm like, holy crap, I'm not making I'm only making certain words something to me because I've learned to tune certain words out and just let them bounce off of me. But it's also important for me to realize words can be very, very, very powerful depending on the person and depending on how you're using the word and what their definition of the word is. And so using that, I was like, I'm starting to get this entrepreneurial journey more and more, and I'm putting in the reps. And I felt like a newborn baby walking all over again because I was learning what works with what and with who and how. Because
Mm-hmm.
the one thing that I do is I'm like, whatever I can do to make someone's life a better life.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminds me of that little kid, the little kid in me,
Mm-hmm.
where I had to fight, I had to claw, and I had people who were on my side.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, both my parents were on my side, but I say my story's a little confusing because I have a biological who drove away, and I have a father that I call dad to this day because he
Mm-hmm.
was always there for me. And so
Mm-hmm.
I got to see it on both ends. And I took that and used that power as if I can be there for someone, I'm going to be there for them in any way, shape, or form. Whether that's, is there an action that I can take? Is there a word that I can say? Is it a question that I can get to move them in such a way that they didn't even, or even give them that possibility? I'm possible.
Mm-hmm.
I'm possible. Because it
Mm-hmm.
just starts with believing that it's possible. Once you
Mm-hmm.
believe, now you have something to
Mm-hmm.
hold on to.
I think, honoring your journey and then also honoring a survivor journey from abuse, there's a difference between abandonment
Mm-hmm.
and active abuse.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Absolutely.
active abuse, you know, is a form of abandonment. Your sands of love and presence and some of the things that human needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, words are used to weaponize and to degrade somebody and to rip them apart. It's used for conditioning, it's used for gaslighting, it's used for psychological warfare.
Mm-hmm.
So, in accepting and honoring the nuance of not letting things in, it's extremely important to understand and be mindful of your words, because if you say the wrong words, what that reveals to somebody else is your level of respect, your level of consciousness, your level of how you the role that the other person is playing in your world.
Mm-hmm.
And 9 times out of 10, so for me, for example, if somebody comes to me with funky languages, I have two questions. Are they
Mm-hmm.
mentally capable and willing to have this conversation with me? And number two, are they emotionally intelligent enough to be willing to understand where I'm coming from? If
Yeah.
the answer is not an immediate yes for either one of those, I will not confront it. It's just like deuces. I wish you well. I don't have room in my world for hate, but I'm not trying to lower my standard or lower my vibe by educating a grown ass person how to be civil. And
Yeah.
to me, it's that simple
Yeah.
because, again, when you're coming from a space where people have used words to hurt you, where they have weaponized love, where they have done different things specifically with intention to systematically break you down, you know how that feels. You will be the last person to put that onto somebody else. And so I
Hmm.
think, like, from that, even if you look at any of David's content, he's the same. I
Hmm.
guarantee there is not a single time that he just said, "Oh, I'm just going to use this." No, he treats every single word as if it costs him like $1 million, and
Yeah.
every single word has an intention and a point. And
Yes.
I think that's something that a lot of people gets under my skin all the time, and people will just say, "Hey, how's it going?" And I'll stop, and they'll just keep walking. I'm like, when did a question become a greeting? Really? People are complaining about connection, and this is not what we're normalizing?
Well, I'll tell you,
It's
I love
crazy.
that. Yeah, I absolutely love that. And it's true, uh it was interesting. I was speaking with one coach. They're actually kind of judging me, which is okay. It's part of the journey.
That's
But
insecurity on their side.
yeah,
That's a
yeah,
control issue coming on their
yeah,
side. That's a bias that they don't realize or willing to
yeah.
recognize on their
And
side.
it was interesting. I'm like, wow, she's literally judging me with the question she just asked me. But she asked me, uh, what do I want to do?
Mhm,
And the first thing that came to mind was I want to change the world. I
mhm,
want to change the world.
mhm,
And she's just kind of like, well, how are you going to do that?
mhm,
And I'm like, well, by changing myself. Each
mhm.
conversation I have with someone, I become a better version of me.
Be the change.
Yeah. And she was kind of, I'm not going to lie, my ego kind of felt that one because it kind of hit her like, well, that was a really good answer. But
Mhm,
it was that place of every time I connect with someone,
mhm,
every time I have a conversation with someone, I get an opportunity. I get
mhm,
an opportunity to learn more about me, to learn more about them, and to learn more about us because
mhm,
it's a dance. We're having a dance with one another. And I get it. If you've had your toes stepped on a bunch of times, whenever someone steps on your toe, you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. We're not doing that. And
mhm.
that's what I love about the journey.
But it's not just, I mean, and I agree with you on so many different components. I think that when you're comparing it to a dance, it's understanding all the different cues, right?
Hmm.
So just because every person offers an opportunity to learn something doesn't mean that you should be giving them your time.
Amen. Yeah.
It doesn't. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sorry, but in the US, we've normalized codependency. We've normalized emotional investment. We've normalized all of these things to keep people in broken cycles. It's systematic.
Hmm.
Actually, I can't even call it a broken cycle. It's an intentional cycle that is meant to
Hmm.
keep people where they're supposed to be, which is a bunch of bullshit as well.
Yeah.
And if you look at any of the narratives, I'm Chinese American.
Hmm.
We're not even part of the dialogue. It's black and brown people,
Yeah.
and it's not even yellow. And that is the most dismissive at the ground level. At the same time, how confusing is it on how a lot of the Eastern practices are mainstream?
Hmm.
The nutrition plans are mainstream. Martial arts, that doesn't come from the West.
Yeah.
Original breathing techniques, where
Yeah.
does that come from?
Yeah. Yeah.
Any of the mind body connection. Is
Yeah.
it bastardization of an Eastern concept? I mean, I don't know the answer. All I know is I lived in Asia for 11 years, and there's a clear difference on community and the quality of conversations that I have in different parts of the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, could you explain that a little bit? Like what the quality of conversation? Because I'm actually really fascinated in that.
Yeah. So, first thing, when I got one of my first certifications for being a group fitness instructor, like, yeah, you know
Hmm.
what do I want to do? Enough money in the bank. Let's just float around for a little bit,
Hmm.
hang out, see what happens. I remember telling my mom that I wanted to work at Denny's because at first I wanted to open up a bed and breakfast. And so to me, why would I go to school to learn how to do hospitality rather than get paid to do it on the flow? Immersion, big proponent of immersion.
Yeah.
And my mom was so upset. She was just like, I don't think you should be in a Denny's. I'm like, lots of clients, fast turnaround and breakfast. I feel like you could eat breakfast 24 hours a day. Plus, the hot chocolate is amazing and the corned beef hash is to die for. And
Yeah.
she was just not happy with it, right? Digress, short story. But because of that, I had said, okay, maybe we're not ready for that yet. So let me just go get my group fitness certification.
Mm-hmm.
First group fitness certification, told my mom that I was doing it. She thought I had control issues. So she was just like, I don't know if you're going to be any good at it. Constructive criticism, love of a mother, fine, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Then when I told my friends in Singapore, hey, I just got certified, they were just like, well, Jess, when's your first event?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, what do you mean by first event? They said, do you need photographers? Do you want our PR people? Like, where can we send, where are you selling your tickets? And I'm like, I
Yeah.
just got a certification.
Yeah.
Here, they're offering, all it is, hey, I got my certification. They automatically assume, I mean, they also know me too, because I don't do anything small, right? So
Yeah.
they're automatically assuming I'm, booked out at like, big theaters and doing
Yeah.
something similar, comparable to the Super Bowl halftime show or something like this. In their mind, that's what they thought I was getting ready to do.
That's
Furthest
awesome.
from the truth, but they were offering photographers. They were offering PR, stories, and people can write stories about it, whatever I needed. And then they
Mm-hmm.
also wanted to help sell tickets.
Mm-hmm. Oh, very nice.
That's a big difference. That's a
Yeah.
huge difference. I mean, in
Yeah.
Chicago, we have fire and ice running through our blood, and a lot of the people that are doing extremely well are not the ones that have big social media presence.
Mm.
They're not the ones. I mean, you're on my LinkedIn. How often am I promoting any of my fitness stuff?
Yeah.
Not very often.
Yeah.
At the same time, one of my 58 dog clients has access to 200 buildings, so I can teach in 200 buildings.
Wow. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you don't think about any of this stuff, but these are far and few between. It took me 3.5, almost 4 years to find the quality of these connections. And
Mhm.
that those connections came from me being in my flow state. The smile on my face when I'm hanging out with animals, the smile on my face when I'm teaching those classes, the smile on my face, that's when I'm in alignment. That's when I'm in my flow. That's when this is fully connected to this. The world stops. And
Yeah.
people, they don't care. They're just like, what else do you do? How do we stay in that hemisphere for a little bit longer? What can we help you with?
Yeah.
Don't pitch anything. They ask. And that's the difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I
that's
absolutely love
the
that.
norm. I mean, when I'm in Asia, that's the norm when I'm in Asia. And here it took me 4 years to figure that out, to cultivate it. I'm like, why is this the norm?
You know, I'll tell you,
It's crazy.
yeah, thank you for sharing that. And part of the process of I call it putting in the reps. You know, we put in the reps of life,
Yeah.
and then we figure out how to be in alignment with the heart going to the mind versus the mind attempting to go to the heart.
Mhm.
Um, and what's super funny, so going from fighter to entrepreneur, I
Mhm.
was like stumbling all over the place. And I'm just like, why is this so hard? Like, why is this so hard? And I realized something. Um, Sometimes our traumas become our friends.
Mhm. Yeah, they're our
And
teachers, our best teachers.
my trauma was when people tell me I can't do something,
Mhm.
oh, it's over.
Challenge
Like, yeah,
accepted.
I'm just like,
First on my to-do list.
ah, like he's already halfway done doing it. What the hell?
Mental
But
note, this is the first person I'm showing my accomplishment to, my first
yeah,
phone call.
yeah. And when I went from fighter to entrepreneur, it was
Mhm.
like, you're Clifford Starks. You've done
Mhm.
this, and this. And I almost lost my tracking because I'm used to people hating on me and tell me I can't do something. Like, don't tell me I can do it. Tell me I can't do it. Tell me I suck. That's where I do my best work.
Yeah.
And I'm building this audience that's really like pushing me. Like they're literally pushing me to move forward on my own journey.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh my goodness, you're such an amazing coach. And I thought, like, oh, well, I probably should go get certified as a coach because everybody's calling me one. And so I
Yeah.
got certified. I'm like, holy crap, I have been coaching all this time. Isn't that something?
Yeah.
And I had this aha of, I'm not used to being completely supported.
Mm-hmm.
I'm used to people telling me what I can't do and
Mm-hmm.
using that as energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to learn to use the other thing as energy, which was ironically hilarious because my whole game is about greatness within. Like, I'm pointing at people telling them, you are great, you are amazing, you cannot be stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gonna be hard. But
Mm-hmm.
that was my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
My perspective was life is hard and you got
Mm-hmm.
to get ready to go. And then I realized, oh, it gets to be what you want it to be.
Yeah. 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 I think, I mean, so many ways that you can unpack that, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people are not aware of their own trauma. So you have multiple different types of trauma. You can have compound trauma.
Mm,
So if you're looking at abuse, abuse is not a single incident. It is behavior, it is a trend, it is a series of events that create a pattern. And the pattern just gets more and more volatile, or however you want to define it, more intense. And that can be trauma.
mm,
You can have a single event, war, an accident, something, maybe not just, mental or emotional, but if you get into a bike accident, that's a trauma. That's a physical trauma.
no.
The pandemic, every single person has experienced a trauma. So being forced to overnight switch your entire lifestyle, all the upheaval. The definition of trauma is an overloaded system. You don't have the tools to deal with it. You are outside of your element. As an athlete, we have that challenge accepted mindset. At the same time, we also run on adrenaline. So when
Yeah.
we run on adrenaline, we think that we have everything under control because, hey, ego is our amigo. This is on how we operate. And then as soon as we get that adrenaline, we're like, well, what? It's almost like we need a hit of something. And we're just
Yeah.
like, all right, what kind of chaos can I create in my world so that I can get that adrenaline right now? Whether it's poking and prodding some of those relationships, surrounding ourselves with people that should not be in our vicinity, or just, doing things that are actually self-harm practices that we don't recognize as self-harm because we are where we are, right?
Mhm.
And so when we're in that element, we don't know how to receive.
Yeah.
Maybe similar, maybe different. I don't know, because your journey is different from my journey. For me, I'm learning how to receive because receiving always came with strings.
Mhm.
So receiving came with some kind of ulterior motives. If it was a guy, I'd already had my bed and breakfast in Italy if I had $1 for every time a guy tried to disgrace me. Well, I bought you
Mhm.
dinner, so aren't you putting out for dessert?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna buy my own dinner. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
or
100%.
like a society. I mean, it's just your circles. It takes a while to learn how to do that, and I think segueing into creating that community of, once you're on your own and like all your different possibilities, your competencies, where you lack, where you can strengthen, whatever, however you want to define it, you surround yourself with people based on desire, based on pleasure, not based on necessity.
Mhm.
So I have no problem letting people go, because at any given moment, if I don't like you, or if you've done something to create more chaos rather than be constructive in my world, the door is just as easy to come in and just as easy to go out. I got me.
Mhm.
And I think when you operate from that perspective, it just becomes so much healthier, and that it helps you receive too. Because if you're in that position with, okay, if I'm doing this for you, let's keep track. You're doing this for me. Yes, it's a symbiotic relationship, but it's rooted up here. It's not rooted in here.
Mhm. Yeah. Absolutely. It was interesting. I actually didn't realize I had trouble receiving. To be
Mhm.
complete, like, I wasn't very aware of it.
You're not alone.
Yeah.
A lot of
And
people
so
out
I'm just
there,
like,
myself included.
yeah. Well, and what's interesting? because I'm like, I want to change 1 billion people's lives. I want to
Mhm.
change 1 billion people. And originally, the thought was because if I do that, if I put enough weight on my shoulders, the rest of the world can't screw it up.
Mhm.
Like that was my thought. And I'm
Mhm.
always, I can do more. I can handle more. I can put on more on my back, put on more on my back.
Mhm.
And I realized like the game that I was playing.
Mhm.
And I started realizing the people that I was attracting too. I started attracting entrepreneurs who were supporting this dream
Mhm.
and supporting it in a way like connecting me and pointing to different people and helping me with their networks. And I started seeing something different. I'm like, everyone has tools and resources.
Mhm.
And when you can figure out like, because I would never stop going with the notion that people are good. They're inherently good, and that's my journey. You know, I've
Mhm.
had other people say, "No, Cliff, they're inherently bad," and I've had a discussion with people on this. Um, and it's whatever you choose to look at. But when one of the mentors that I was speaking with said, like, you have trouble receiving, and
Mhm.
you're a badass,
Mhm.
you know, I had to sit on it for a little bit,
Mhm.
and I sat and I'm like, holy crap, I do have a lot of trouble receiving because I'm used to like I'll do 10 times the work and then we'll figure it out that way. I'm the
Mhm.
leader. I can blah, blah, blah. And I learned when I stepped back and said, wait a minute, my journey's my journey
Mhm.
and their journey's their journey. And when I can just be me in the most form of me that I can be
Mhm.
and allow them to be them,
Mhm.
they're better for it that way than
Yeah.
me trying to put on crutches for them
Mhm.
and do it all for them.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different nuances to that. I think I agree with you on how people are inherently good.
Hmm.
I think trauma can either make you bitter or better.
Yeah.
I also think that if you look at statistics and coming from domestic violence, there's a different discussion on alignment between intentions versus execution, so integrity. So
Hmm.
I stand and I will preach until the cows come home on integrity. I'm like, I really don't give a shit if your intentions are good. Well, what was your execution?
Yeah. Yeah.
And from that, that is all you need to know because people can say, and that's one of the art of psychological warfare, right? It's
Hmm.
the belief that people are good, but then consistently bad execution or consistently harmful execution. So I think that alignment between what people are saying, what they're doing is so much more important than just believing in whether or not people are inherently good. I think the belief that people are inherently good is going to help you, frame that first or second interaction with somebody, but then you got to have that awareness to find out if people are worthy of it. And for me, I have 20 plus people around the world that I could call overnight that would take me in
Yeah.
if I
Well,
needed it.
you used one very important word, standards.
Yeah.
And one thing that I held myself to standards. I just needed to learn to hold others to standards as well.
But that's a US thing because in different parts of the world, me living in different countries, that's the norm.
Hmm.
People respect themselves. Codependency and enmeshment is not a normalized behavior.
Hmm.
So when you're having discussions, there's less communication issues because it's so much healthier. You say what you mean what you say. We Dr. Seuss everything. It's so much simpler. Oh, you're an
Right.
adult, use your words. If you're a child, you don't have the tools to use your words and to articulate everything. But if you're not going to come to me as an adult saying, "Hey, you did something that bothers me. Can we talk about it?" No, you
Yeah.
need to be an adult if you want to, do whatever you got to do. Build a business, start a relationship, have a friendship, be in the general vicinity. You got to be an adult.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we don't do that out here. How many times do people have that mental gymnastics because it's obsessing about what did they mean? Ask
Mhm.
them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's
Are they
interesting.
mad at me? Well, did they say that they were mad at you? No.
Yeah.
Well, then why are you assuming?
Yeah. Yeah. And so my thoughts, I'd like your thoughts on this. Levels of energy. When your energy is high, you don't have to play mental gymnastics and say like, oh, what do they think? Well, I don't know. If you're just like, I'm just gonna be, and I'm
Mhm.
gonna show up in the way that I show up. And if I'm the right flavor for you, I'm the right flavor for you. And if I'm
Mhm.
not, that's okay too.
Mhm. A couple different motivations for energy. So
Hmm.
we're getting nuance. This is my space.
Hmm.
This is like my place of expertise, if you will. This is my playground.
Mama Misty just put, "Can we all just be grown-ups?"
Right?
And
Yes.
oh, by the way, I would love to introduce you to Mama Misty sometime because I think you guys would have an amazing, fascinating conversation.
Absolutely. 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 I think that totally lost my train of thought. Sorry. What were we just talking about?
So you were talking
Oh,
about
energy.
energy, your
Energy.
frame of world, yeah.
Yeah. So for energy, I think that if you always go back to asking where it's coming from
Hmm.
and where it's originating from, is the energy coming from here? Is the energy coming from here?
Hmm.
That is going to be your biggest game changer. So if you want to look at chakras, a little bit woo woo for people in the US, a lot of value in it.
Hmm.
Um, if you understand where you're operating from, one of the seven chakras, it'll help you with the blockages. They have so much information in the internet about what will happen to you if your heart chakra is clogged or if your stomach chakra is clogged or throat chakra or whatever. You got all these different things. If you're operating from your highest good, your highest self, it's from your crown chakra. And I think for me, I'm high energy in two different capacities. When I don't feel safe, my energy is high because I'm a performer.
Hmm.
And when I'm in flow and I feel 100% safe, my energy is untouchable.
Hmm.
To the outside person, they might appear to be the same. But to me, I don't recognize immediately, but I can tell if I'm where I'm at if I slow myself down and kind of evaluate. So,
Hmm.
how does that look like in execution? High energy in execution, if you're in survival mode or if you've been triggered or if you're coming from a place of scarcity, is going to be the people pleasing. It's going to be trying to solve other people's problems without asking. So
Hmm.
you're basically intruding on somebody else's space,
Hmm.
being very polite. You could be, um, yes, you're playing chess when other people are playing checkers. At the same time, you're not listening to what the needs actually are. You're coming from ego, so you're assuming what the needs are rather than exploring. So you're coming from a place of dominance rather than a place of curiosity.
Hmm.
So that's what that high energy can look like. And then from the other high energy, it's where your eyes are smiling. It is where your breathing is completely under control. It's where you're able to finish an Ironman race in 12 hours and 18 minutes. It
Yeah.
is a celebration. It's you're not thinking about a single thing. You don't really know what's going on. Time just kind of stops because all you know is that you're laughing and you're living your best life. And that is a high energy. And that's specifically what I help people with. That is the art of resilience. So, in terms of stages, resilience is the art of bouncing back from adversity as quickly as possible. But what happens if once you acknowledge what you have to bounce back from, you start to trigger yourself so you can work through everything. And then you get to that place of flow where these things aren't bothering you and you're able to use them in a productive way in order to connect with yourself at the deepest level and do whatever your heart desires. And coming from a place of pleasure and protecting your peace rather than drive and grind with potentially disappointing somebody
Yeah.
at the cost of betraying yourself.
So pleasure with protecting your peace. I think we could make a shirt like that too, because I really like those words.
Yeah. I mean,
Nice.
it's a lot of people, when you talk about flow and you use words like protection,
Hmm.
it doesn't harmonize. They don't go hand in hand. Protecting is a little bit aggressive, uh, defensive, if you
Yeah.
will, and it's not flowy. It's strong. It's tense, and flow is flow,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
At the same time, I think those words are used specifically to illustrate the importance of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I'm willing to get on a live broadcast. If you look at any of my content, that's not normal. I
Mm-hmm.
don't accept lives.
Yeah.
I don't accept lives specifically because I don't like explaining what it means to be a survivor of domestic violence,
Mm-hmm.
living at ground zero, dealing with stalkers and internet shenanigans and all that other stuff. It's not a discussion that I want to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So I
absolutely.
just don't deal with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's on how I'm able to control certain elements within my world. At the same time, I have a certain level of trust with your integrity.
Mm-hmm.
You might not get everything right in my context or expectations. At the same time, when addressed, you will do everything in your power to try to address it or fix it. And I know that with 100% certainty. That's
Yeah.
why I was like, yeah, let's do it. Okay,
Yeah.
why not?
That means a lot to me. It really does, and thank you. And I will say, one of my core values is about integrity, standing up for just listen to a person,
Yeah.
listen to a person, and it's a muscle that needs to be built.
Mhm.
I'm this isn't the first time that I'm gonna have to work on that muscle, and it's not gonna be the last time either. I'm always working on listening and hearing people to their
Mhm.
fullest because, and I didn't even know this happened, but when you listen and see people, they listen and see you too.
Mhm.
A very powerful win-win for everybody, and
You can
that's
only
where,
meet people as deep as they're willing to meet themselves.
yeah,
So there's a
yeah,
difference between your intellectualizing. If you're sitting there and intellectualizing, listening to somebody, there's a
hmm,
difference between comprehension.
yeah, yeah,
So can you understand what they're saying? Can
hmm,
you, I mean, people within my survivor community, and my survivor community is completely different than other people's survivor. For me, it was attempted murder.
hmm, yeah,
And from that, I don't mess with that. And I also don't take that lightly. So
yeah,
I have people in my world. I've been living, not to disclose too much personal information, but when I first moved back to Chicago, I was doing month to month.
hmm,
I was changing my places because every time I would get triggered or I realized that somebody found out where I lived, I was out. End of the
hmm,
month, keep the deposit, don't care. Change your
yeah,
space.
yeah,
And staying in the same space, everyone in my community, they'll ask me if I'm out late, can we give you cash so that you can take a taxi home?
hmm,
Or can we, because they question my trust in apps, as an
hmm,
example.
hmm,
Like that level of sensitivity, that level of compassion, I think is just so important, so incredibly important, especially when it comes to, hey, can I give you a ride home? Where would you like for me to drop you off? Where would you feel safe? Would you prefer that I get you a taxi instead? I mean, yeah, safety is the easiest way to build trust for different types of survivors. And I think for me, that is the number one. If people can understand that without me explaining it,
hmm.
you're my family. And I'll be honest with you. I only have 3 people that I trust explicitly in Chicago.
Hmm,
And it's interesting because I changed my approach. I used to let everybody in until they gave me a reason to get kicked out. And
hmm.
now, nah, you're out there. I'm gonna watch you. I'm gonna see
Well,
how you treat
I'll tell
people.
you.
I'm gonna see how you
So
do life, and then maybe I'll be like, all right, you come in. You come in.
I'll tell
You come in
you
my fort.
the way my brain works, because I'm always looking for the win-win,
Mhm,
and instantly I went into like, so as I'm building my business, it's important to have the right people in,
mhm,
and you don't want to just accidentally bring the wrong people in.
mhm,
So I like knowing everybody's skill sets and also aligning with core values. Like I have such an alignment with you because our core values are very in sync.
mhm,
And you being able to like check mark, like check, this is good, this is good, this is, ooh, here's a red flag, here's a red flag, here's a red flag. And I do the same for you, like, oh, there's a couple red flags there. But it just makes the journey so much easier and so much healthier on all aspects, because I talk about that holistic process, and it's about having our health in health, our relationships in health, our business in health, every piece that we can look at and say, is this what I want to experience? Is this what I want to be a part of?
So I'm going to stop you right there. So when you say, oh, there's a couple different red flags. So are
Mm-hmm.
those red flags because I've shared a vulnerability with you and you haven't understood the same journey because it's different? Or are they red flags based on something that came out of left field? There's a difference. If somebody
Yeah.
goes through the vulnerability and shares with you what they're going through, it is
Mm-hmm.
your responsibility to acknowledge and honor that they trust you. Because when you
Yeah.
come in hot with a judgment, you've broken trust.
True. Yeah.
And
It's
that's something that's number one thing. So from my trauma, as soon as I sniff out that people are judging me, that's where I come from. No,
mm,
that's being tolerated. That's not being celebrated. So like
yeah.
people in my circle, when I know what their goals are, I will strategically place some of my people in their world because my people add value to me. I'm willing to share that with other people. Now, if I
Mm-hmm.
misspeak and if somebody does me dirty, I'm not going to blast them on the internet, but I will correct myself to everyone that I made that recommendation to. Why?
Mm.
Because I think that's important.
No, and I respect that because I know that you personally do that. And
100%. I'm like, you know what? Cool. Like everyone come in and we can play. We can have some fun. Everyone can make some money. We can do some cool shit.
yeah,
You dirty? All right. Thank you.
yeah. And
And
you
then
know
and
what?
then you
Like,
correct yourself. There is no apology needed. I was like, thank you. We're good.
yeah. And straight up, I'll tell you, I don't blast people. And
You correct
it's
yourself though.
yes, yes. And there what's interesting about this discussion because of the nuances, and it's really kind of cool actually. I'll give an example. So if I see some red flags, I'll definitely let my people know. Like, hey, there's a red flag here, here, and here. I'm not one to go on the internet and post on the red flag. And just to make for sure that no one's taking it like I'm saying you do that, because I'm not saying you do that or you do or you don't do it. But I think it's important for certain people to do that too. I think it's important to have a big blast and say, this person did this. Like, so everybody can see and everybody can understand. And it's about, yeah, it's about course correction, essentially. Like I look at life as a form of course correction.
I think in terms of building community, it's important to be transparent on people that you allow into your world. And if they no longer are being appropriate, then they get removed. I
Yeah.
think that is something that is valuable to share and articulate within your community. In terms of the public domain, I still focus on internal world. So the art of resilience is focusing on your internal world. You have zero control over what happens to you. You
Mm-hmm.
only have control over how you deal with it. So for me, I make enough questionable decisions. My toxicity is still believing in the potential in people as much as I claim that I just, watch different things. I will give you the benefit of the doubt. And I'm just like, all right, prove me wrong or prove me right. And I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. Sorry for the language. I'm like, all right, didn't
Well,
learn that lesson. Let me try again. And then I use that as content. But I use like my stories and I only talk about like my own stuff. So whatever. I get accused of staying in my trauma a lot. But I'm like, well, my bank accounts aren't suffering. I was like, I'm still on point. I was like, all right, cool, whatever. What's
I'll
wrong
tell
with
you,
you
like,
today? Why are you hating on what I'm doing?
well, what's super cool is ultimately, so every time someone makes a call, they are doing the call through their perception
Yeah.
too. And I always look at that. Like ultimately the game that I play, my fifth principle, it talks about take extreme responsibility and just go like, am I okay with the situation that I'm in? If
Exactly.
people are calling me out, am I okay with that? If they're not, am I okay with that?
Yeah.
And when we can do that and have a good time and laugh big,
Mhm.
that's the other thing. Having fun, having fun in life. We
Mhm.
got you over here who's an absolute badass, who's done amazing things on her journey.
Mhm.
Um, and you're a superstar. You're a superstar and you like to have fun and
Mhm.
smile. And I
Thank you.
want to see you around the dogs. I want to see you smiling around those dogs because I can picture it. Just off you talk, yep, here it comes. I can picture it as you're talking about it. Just like, yeah, I'm with my group. I got this.
You just, it's just this nonstop. I mean, one of my personal training clients, she's so funny. Bless her heart. I love her to bits. She's amazing. Hardest worker in the room, hands down. Love her. After 3 weeks of working together, her warm up is now her work, or her workout is now her warm up. So she's just like next level. Love it.
Yeah.
Right. She was asking me, well, what are you doing after like one of our sessions? And I said, oh, I'm so excited. I get to see like one of my favorite puppies. And she's like, what's your favorite part about, walking dogs? And I said, it's the butt wiggles. And she's like, what does that mean? I said, as soon as you open the door, first off, you can hear it. It's like that big nose. They can smell you coming down the hall or something. I don't know, right? And so then they bop the door and then they go like a bull.
Uh,
And then as they do that, as soon as you open the door, it's like Christmas morning or whatever holiday you celebrate, and the entire body wiggles because they're like, oh my goodness, yay, you're here, you're here, you're here. And then they can't control themselves. And then they jump up and they give you kisses and they circle around you just like you're like a shark in the water or something like this. And then as soon as you go down to their level and you give them a big hug, you let them get everything out and they're like, okay. And then they kind of chest out and they're like, we're ready to go on our adventure. And to me, that entire process, you can't put a dollar amount on that. I laugh all the time when, these walks, I get paid for it, obviously. So when people are paying me, I laugh every single time. I'm like, I can't believe I convinced people to pay me for this. This doesn't seem right. And so my my personal trainer client, she was like, so next time I see you, do you want me to wiggle my butt? I was like, please don't, but if you want, I won't stop you.
we could make a video out of that.
But it's just, you can't. I mean, I also think, from a deeper level, from a coaching perspective, a lot of people feel stuck. They're not actually stuck, but they feel stuck because when they're stressed out or when they're in like maybe potentially that survivor mode, they only see one perspective, that you get that tunnel vision, right? For people that are in life or death situations, the skill that you build is tunnel vision from multiple perspectives. It is the most insane thing. And I don't even understand how to articulate it, but it's the most insane thing in the entire world because the survival skill is life or death. And so you see it from what actions do you need to take to stay safe. You see it from all the other people that are exposed. You automatically download all of your different exposures within the last 30 days, 45 days, whatever. And everything is going into overdrive. I mean, you want to talk about ADHD or something like that. This is like controlled. Yeah. And being able to see all those different perspectives, because in that moment, the only guaranteed thing is this is either going to keep me alive or it's going to kill me. Mm-hmm. And when you walk dogs, it's a gentle way to see different perspectives and to build that muscle, to put in those reps, because you get to slow down your system and see the world through the eyes of a puppy.
Ooh, I like that.
So you're a father. You get to see the world every time that you shut this down and you get into here, you get to experience the world through your children.
Yeah.
When you're having those moments with your partner and you get out of here and you shut down your entrepreneurial and the fighting stuff and you get to here, you get to experience the world through your partner.
Yeah. It's so amazing.
It's undervalued.
Yeah, it is. And I'll tell you, like, I love my wife. We're actually going to be married 15 years this month, March 30th.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And our 2 kids. And here's what's super crazy. All right, this trips me out. Talking about going through that heart space. Mm-hmm. We're born with it. Mm-hmm. We're born to do it. Because I see how my son responds and I see how my youngest responds. And there was an interesting take where I actually did misspeak. My youngest was handing Tyson this pencil. Mm-hmm. And I go, Tyson, take that from Titus. Mm-hmm. And he went to grab at it.
Strong names, by the way.
Thank you. And Titus started pulling back because he was grabbing at the pencil. Mm-hmm. And I go, son, he's handing it to you. Just put your hand out and he'll give it to you. Mm-hmm. And he put his hand out and Titus dropped the pencil in his hand, and the words that I used, take that pencil from him,
Mhm.
made like Tyson just followed direction.
Mhm.
Yeah, you told me to take it from him. I was taking it from him. I'm
Mhm.
like, but when I changed the words, I said, "Oh no, he's giving it to you. Just put your palm out. He'll give it to you."
Mhm.
And it's like just sitting back and thinking of the beauty of it all and
Mhm.
seeing it all play out. It's really cool and fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, also going back to Vipassana, right?
Hmm.
Observe the body, master the mind. When you get into like the sensations and all the different components of what it means to observe the body, a lot of people overlook the concept of purification.
Hmm.
So do you remember, was it last week or the week before? I don't know, because we've been talking about doing this not for a long time, but for, a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And I told you that I do a tech detox.
Yeah.
So when
Yep.
we were talking about that,
Hmm.
so in terms of inputs, I did not know that we were going to have global nonsense happening. I didn't know. I
Hmm.
just know that for my internal world, I felt a lot of upheaval. And so
Hmm.
as a preemptive to any kind of shenanigans or stressing myself out or putting myself into additional trauma or whatever,
Hmm.
I knew that I needed to unplug.
Yeah.
So for me, that was purification because I knew at that moment I was affected, but I didn't realize. I knew I'm affected, but I didn't realize what was affecting. So I just said, everything's out. Me, no internet, no nothing.
Yeah.
So everything was just shut down. Phone is in airplane mode. And my greatest teachers are my animals and nature.
Hmm.
So you could do water meditations, you can do Wim Hof breathing, you can do, I don't know, just I had 3.5 hours of watching the clouds dance.
Hmm.
I mean, my world is, I accomplished quite a bit, but it's not busy. It's
Yeah.
not at all. I mean, people will laugh at me all the time. They're like, Jess, what'd you do today? I taught 2 classes, I walked 3 dogs, and I watched the clouds move for 4.5 hours. They're like,
It's
what?
awesome.
What? Or like, Jess, do you want to meet up? No. Well, Jess, you're always busy. Define busy.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to tell people, no, I don't value that because that's just
Mhm.
rude.
Yeah.
I would never say that to somebody. Never say that to somebody.
Actually.
I don't even think I think it at the time. It's just in that moment, I'm just like,
Yeah.
well, I don't think anything is better than watching these clouds dance right now. Oh my goodness, it's wintertime. We still get pink skies.
Yeah.
I'll call you in a couple hours after the sun goes down. And that purification process is exactly what I need for me to understand what's been affecting me. It's detoxing the foods,
Hmm.
sugars. When we eat, too much processed foods, it affects our entire operating system. You're a high level athlete.
Yep.
Were you eating hot dogs and pizzas and everything like that on a regular basis? Maybe as an occasional cheat.
Absolutely not.
No, because this
Not
is
if I
your
wanted to look like crap during fight time.
especially when you got to lean out and you're just like, I got to intimidate my competition. You're just like,
Mhm.
nah, my muscles got to have muscles. And so
Yes.
you learn to, you know, nourish your body. It's not a diet because diet is scarcity, right? So
Yeah.
it's restrictive, but
Restriction.
you're nourishing your body. You're fueling your body. More
Yeah.
aggressive. You're fueling everything. So when I do my detoxes, that is, I go grocery shopping and sometimes I'm just eating fruits, but I'm getting good
Mhm.
quality fruits.
Mhm.
So there's nothing that has any kind of effect. I mean, we're going to get real close in about 5 seconds, but it's checking your poop.
Yeah.
It's, your friends when you can talk about bowel movements, right? But
Yes.
it's
Yes.
checking to find out how is your sleep, how is your skin, how is your bowel movements. If I
Mhm.
have too much caffeine, very sensitive to caffeine and very sensitive to sugar. If I start having any kind of spots, depending on where they are on my face, that's an indication of diet or an indication of stress. Within the body keeps the score. Fantastic book that I highly recommend to everyone. My shoulders, lower back, hips, hip mobility, number one that I teach to everybody. That's one of the biggest places that you keep stress.
The body keeps the score. Were you telling me about that book?
I'm pretty sure it's one of the
Okay.
ones
Okay.
that I do all the
I
time.
gotta,
So I can grab it for you. Give me 1 second.
yeah, I
Keep
gotta
talking.
get on that book. The main subject always in your house, Misty. Poop is
I,
all. Misty said, like for real, poop is the main subject always in my house.
all my friends are just like, well, is the food, will the food make you poop? Because processed food stays in your stomach. It stays
Hmm.
in your, it blocks you up. If it
Yep.
doesn't go all the way through, that's, yeah, I don't want to keep you, but I do. Two of the books that are very, very, very important to me
Yeah.
are this one.
Okay.
So from surviving to
Surviving to
thriving,
thriving.
more.
Yep.
Okay, so this is P. Walker's new book is an invaluable comprehensive resource for anyone with childhood history of trauma. This book is certain to benefit clients and clinicians alike. So the reason why I like this book is because we don't always understand childhood trauma. If we look
Hmm.
at generational trauma and if we accept that people are doing the best that they can, it might not always serve us.
Hmm.
So, for example, my parents did the best that they could without the tools or the resources, no internet. I mean, you look at generations, right? They didn't have access to all this stuff. And
Yeah.
they were the first born in the US.
Hmm.
So, what are all the different things? They did really good considering what they were given,
Yeah.
but it wasn't necessarily good for me. That's coming from a generation where it's okay to, you know,
Hmm. Yeah.
hit
Absolutely.
hit the backside. You don't use your words. You know,
Yeah.
you put the fear of God into kids so they don't
Hmm.
act up, and
Yep.
it's different. So I think from that perspective, it helps you kind of understand generational trauma and on how different things more in compassion rather than comprehension, but it's
Hmm.
dancing that line.
Yeah.
And then the body keeps the score. I will send you a picture of it. You could put a link, whatever. And
Okay.
the body keeps the score is another more scientific clinicianal type book, and it helps you literally identify where the trauma and why the trauma gets trapped in different parts of your body.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jessica. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time, superstar. Is there anything else that you want to share with the audience? How to connect with you?
So in terms of a mantra or in terms of the takeaway that I hope everyone understands, this is my logo. And it's representative of anything in the world is the semicolon, but the infinity is you. So no matter what tries to stop you, nothing will because you are so much bigger than anything. So I hope that people are able to kind of internalize that nothing can take you down mindset.
I love
And
that.
if anybody, wants to join a fitness class or wants to know more about strengthening resilience or getting from that place into flow, and yeah, more than happy. I am going to have a online course. I've been talking about it forever, but it's finally ready to launch. So next
Nice.
month, yeah, it's called Cultivate a Warrior. So that's going to be available next month. Our book is coming out, I think, in April, so next month as well. And yeah, you
All
just
right. Well,
check me
make
out at
sure to,
jessicacorbo.com.
yeah, share when you get that out for sure.
Yeah.
And like I have my Facebook audience, my YouTube audience, I'm going through my journey, and we're just looking to help as many people along the way,
Yeah.
shine as brightly as they possibly can. And I love that logo as well. That's amazing.
Thank you.
All right, my superstar. Well, I appreciate you as always. Everyone who watched and connected with us, appreciate you. And remember, there's greatness in you. Take care.